Hey there, hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to talk about Memberstack, a new plugin to the WordPress ecosystem, but they have had a lot of presence in the Webflow ecosystem in the past. If you've ever wanted to dynamically gate content, create plans for your users to purchase access to that content, and have just an incredible amount of flexible functionality and customization to all that, maybe you've tried other solutions in WordPress in the past and it's just been a little bit of maybe a little clunky. It's created things on the front end that you didn't want, and you weren't able to customize it as much as you want. I think Memberstack is really going to be a something you're going to want to look forward to here and test out. Just a couple quick tips is that it's a free WordPress plugin. You can obviously, when you're ready to make money from it, you're going to be able to upgrade, and there's discount codes and everything like that in the description. But I partnered with the Memberstack team to make this video because I wanted to explore it and give you my honest thoughts on it. So throughout this video, you're going to see me going through and giving like the absolute basics because there's a lot in here. We're going to have more than one video on Memberstack because there's a lot to cover here. But just at the base level, if you want to create that sort of a members area for your clients or the people that are utilizing your website, or your clients' websites for that matter, you're going to be able to do that, and you're going to be able to do that in a way that is much more customized to whatever it is that you need. You're not going to be forced into a box with any other tools that you may have used in the past. And the functionality is pretty robust. So like I said, Memberstack is brand new to the WordPress ecosystem. They're just launching now. They have some good deals going on. Like I said, check the description for those. And just as a quick rundown of what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to show you everything that the platform has to offer. It's a separate SaaS app, so it's over in their own Memberstack dashboard where you're going to manage a lot of your different things there. It integrates directly with WordPress through a plugin, and then you can create. In this case today, we're going to use bricks, but you could use any builder really, and they have direct integrations with a few of them. And you can create pages and forms and different things like that to create the exact look and feel and vibe that you want in your website while leveraging the authentication and the gated content and all that sort of stuff from Memberstack specifically. So if you've ever wanted to create any sort of custom paid or even free but login specific access to content on your website, this is absolutely something to take a look at. And this is Memberstack. So let's just dive in and see what they got going on. I want to kick things off here in the actual Memberstack app. So if you go and you sign up for Memberstack, then you will eventually get to, once you fully sign up through the marketing end of the website, you're going to get to app.memberstack.com. Everything that I'm going to be talking about in this video is obviously related to WordPress because that's my primary platform. But, as you guys know, Memberstack was a Webflow platform, like originally, like it was a plugin for Webflow. So the way that it works, by my estimation here, is app.memberstack.com is your dashboard for Memberstack, regardless of where you are implementing Memberstack at. What environment, what builder, it doesn't matter. This is kind of your natural hub, and it is, kind of SaaS-like. Obviously, it's outside of your actual WordPress website. You may like that, you may not like that. That's how it is with Memberstack. So just so you know, what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to go through high level all of the different pieces of this app, this SaaS situation here. And then we're going to dive into WordPress and we're going to see how you can actually implement some of these things depending on what you're trying to achieve. To kick things off here, let's talk about the getting started. Really like that they have these. I want to inject some of my opinions in here as well, just like kind of what I think could continuously be improved. I've talked to the Memberstack team already, and I think there's been a lot of great things that have already been evolved since the Webflow transition into the WordPress space here. So I think there's a lot of really cool things going on here. You can see already that there's a video. They have really good videos on either, Bricks, Elementor, Gutenberg, whatever you're using. So I would highly recommend any videos you see throughout here, watch those because they're going to give you a good quick start guide on what they're doing. If you come down here to track your progress, you get these little things that you can say like, oh, I installed the Memberstack plugin, add your ID, create your first member, add a plan. We'll go through like each one of these things. They have Command K within the dashboard here to kind of do all this cool stuff. So that's awesome. And then add a live mode domain and all that sort of stuff. So there's test mode, there's live mode. You'll see that as we go through here. I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but just so you know, there's a Slack community. There's a help center. This is all really good info. And the one thing, as of recording this here in May of 2025, the one thing to note is that the transition to WordPress is very early on, right? There might be some sales going on. Again, looking for discount codes. I'll drop them in the description, everything like that. If you want to go check this out, it's an early transition to WordPress here. The platform works and everything like that, but just know that the documentation, some of it is probably still forthcoming on a lot of the ways that things work differently in WordPress than they do in Webflow. But as a platform, again, you're doing most of your work kind of from here and your management of everything from here, and then you're integrating it on the WordPress side. So not dissimilar to what we're used to in the WordPress environment. So that's just kind of how it is right now, and it's going to continuously get better. They're very open to feedback too. So if you have any, definitely just shoot it their way. There's a Webflow Slack and there's also a WordPress Slack. So make sure you're in the right one when you do that as well. All right, so let's go over the dashboard here. And again, this is the test mode. I've just played around with it for a little bit here and given you kind of I'm going to give you a lay of the land as far as all this goes. This is at a glance, right? You can see your total members, your signups, all your different plans and everything like that, how much money you're making, things like that. Only integrates with Stripe, as I understand right now, which could be good or bad for some people. It's like, it's way easier. I like Stripe. I don't really want PayPal, but some people like PayPal. I think there are different, I could be wrong about this, but I believe there are different places in the world that Stripe probably works with, but I know in different regions they like other platforms. So if that's something you want, maybe reach out to the team, but I know it works great with Stripe right now. And you can kind of see like at a quick glance like how many members of your total test mode members, 50. If you do want to start making money, you are going to need to like pay money, obviously, like switch to live mode, pay money and stuff like that. So there's some plan details there. But when you're just starting everything like that, the WordPress plugin that you'll see is free, and then you can hop in here and you could test to your heart's content, make sure everything's working. And I would highly recommend that as a first step if this is something that you definitely want to try to implement. All right, so that's the dashboard there. Let's go to members. I do have a couple notes that I want to make you aware of as we go through this here. You can see I have like a fake email and then just like my thing in here. I was playing around with this because this is probably one of the things that aligns with me the most as far as like the type of person that I am. I am always trying to like gather data and organize it as much as possible. And with your members, especially the way that we think about this in WordPress, there are some things to consider. So the first thing is the fact that when we go over to the WordPress dashboard, my first question, as is probably yours, is like, am I going to see like, this fake email here? If I add a member in Memberstack and I add a member to my system here, to my membership platform, is it going to be reflected over in WordPress? The answer is no. The answer is potentially maybe like in the future, but absolutely no. Like don't take my word for that. There could be like a situation where it syncs back and forth, but the concept here is they're integrated, the app Memberstack, and obviously via the WordPress plugin, like you sync your app ID and everything. But it's not like you can create a user over in WordPress and then it reflects here or vice versa. It does not do that currently. Maybe in the future it will, but not now. The reason for that is because the reasons that I was given was because like when you get a lot of users in WordPress, it can get clunky and it can get slowed down and bogged down, everything like that. Fair. I personally think that there's some pros and cons to that. Again, there's a lot of pros if you want to like limit the stuff in your database for WordPress and all that sort of those issues that could arise there. At the same time though, it does, in my mind, limit me in some ways because you can do a lot of like, you can look at some like attribute stuff and you can like make like, let's say that this person has like a first name, right? Like you can customize their experience in WordPress still. Like that's possible. But to me, I feel like myself at least and a lot of WordPress people like to do stuff in WordPress and like to stay in that ecosystem because we have tooling and we have all this other stuff that like integrates but makes for dynamic data. We can add fields to the user database and stuff like that. So this definitely is a difference in your workflow. And that's why I would make sure that you're testing this to see if it fits all of your requirements before you actually go and implement it, which is, again, nice. I will, again, huge kudos to being able to do this without having to actually, like necessarily buy into anything. You're in test mode. You're able to change different things and do stuff like that. I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Let's say that you create a new user here in Memberstack. So it's in like the membership platform here. You have custom fields. You have first name, last name. You can add more custom fields. I would like to see a little bit more from this, again, coming from my background here. anytime I hear the word custom field, I think more of like field types. I think the only kind that you can have right now is just a string, so just like text essentially. But you could do something else. You could say like, I don't know, middle name, or I don't know, like job title or something. And then you could have more information in this database. I would like to see more of that, but it depends. Maybe you don't need that for most of these applications that you'd be using this for, maybe a course or maybe an ebook or something like that. But this is how you would go about doing that. You have a couple options to hide it from the pre-built UI, restrict to only admin. That's actually a really nice feature there. Truthfully, I wish more custom post type platforms had that. So the users can't change it, but the admins can. That's a really nice one. But again, it's like most things. There's kind of pros and cons and different things. So you have to test this like 100%. I'm trying to give you the high level of what there is to consider, and then you have to go do this for your own application. If you go to add a member, there's a couple other things here. So the first thing is if you get rid of this, if I get rid of this password stuff here, the one thing that I would love to see here, and I've already talked to the team about this, and I believe they are implementing this, is to add a new member via the UI here, via the admin side. You put in an admin, you put in an email, and you put in a password, and then you can assign it to a plan if you have the plans set up, which we didn't get to yet. But the thing I would love to see is like generate a password, or more specifically, like send them a password, send them an email, then they can generate their own password. Just kind of clunky to type in somebody's password and then like have them reset it or something like that. So I know they're working on that, but maybe by the time you're watching this, that's implemented. But I would love to see that, because it's cool you can add members here, obviously, and then you can just like kind of start that process for them. But ultimately, it's something that you should be able to kind of like generate that for. And again, I do want to stress that when you create a member right here, you are not going to see that reflected in the WordPress users. So another thing that you should, again, make sure you're cognizant of that. So more or less, that's pretty much what the member situation is. You have to understand how to utilize this. Once you assign users to plans and everything like that. The evolution of this is you have 100 members listed in your app here in your Memberstack admin, and then maybe like 75 of them are current and active plan holders, and so they would have like plans here, and then you would see the other 25 that would be just like basically inactive. They don't have a current plan. And then you have this trust status and all this sort of stuff. I really love this. I wish every single platform, including like just WordPress, like would always say when the last login was. I think that's like 100% necessary at all times. For any time you're doing any sort of user authentication. And if you haven't, fully wrapped your head around this by now, we're going to continue to move through this. But the big draw and the big value proposition of Memberstack is authentication and user management, and obviously charging for plans and really like restricting content and gating content. We're going to walk through some of these things now, but those are the big things. What you're not going to see here is you're not going to see building content. That's all done, in the platform, in the builder that you're taking care of. This is just kind of that authentication piece. I want to touch on plans briefly here, but I also do want to come back to this as we kind of build out a little bit. You should watch this video from Duncan here. But basically there's like active plans and archive plans, and then you can set up all of your redirects for what happens when somebody signs up to the archive. So the way that you're typically going to do this as a beginner with Memberstack is you're going to create forms, and you're going to have forms and everything like through Memberstack elements, or shortcodes or et cetera, or whatever. And you're gonna like sign people up through those forms, and you're gonna log in via those forms, and then you're gonna manage the redirects when they purchase or when they log in or when they log out, all through the Memberstack platform here. And then you're gonna like basically assign that redirect, and then you're gonna assign that to like the specific form that you're using, and the action is going to whatever happens after that form is what's going to happen to your users. So again, it's different than normal. I mean, if you're used to being in WordPress, you're going to be over here for like a lot of the setup and the main pieces there. So it's something to consider. If you come down to add a new plan, we could say free plan, or we could say a paid plan. If we go through this, you can kind of see how the form is starting to eventually kind of be put together here, and then you can enable team accounts if you wanted to. There are some really cool, again, niche features in here. I don't want to go like incredibly deep, But, the plan would be like, I don't know, starter plan, something like that, create a plan. And then now we have an actual plan here. And there's kind of, again, in most cases you're probably going to have more than one plan. You can have these default settings that are just kind of like more globally set, and then when somebody goes into a starter plan, then they can, specifically, you can like create the price, you can do all this sort of stuff. So we'll create a price here. I want to go through an actual full example of this, so I'm going to come back to that. I want to come down to gate content and give you guys an idea of that. Again, you have to think. To me, the way that I think about this is that it's in two different places. So you have to think about what your ultimate goal is and your vision for how you're going to utilize this. So you have your members, that makes sense. You have your plans, which is like, okay, the member is subscribed to a plan. Okay, and then when a member is subscribed to a plan, what content do they get access to? And because it's over here, it's a little hard to envision. But then you go over to the WordPress, piece of this puzzle, and you actually, build these things out. So when you're adding gated content, you have to say like, okay, well, like, what are we gating effectively? And it's like, okay, well, in this case, it's like, we'll say like a premium, we'll say a premium course. I'll foreshadow a little bit to like what we're gonna, what we're building here and everything. So premium course, and then members on specific plans are all members. So, if it's everyone gets access to this, then you could say all members. If it's only specific plans, like the starter that we created, then it's only starters that get access to that. And then there's restricted URLs. So you add these, and it's like anything that's equal to or whatever. So this is where, again, I'm a big data architecture guy, and the amount of work that you have to do and the pre-processing for something like this, if you have like a bigger operation going on, is pretty vast. So you want to make sure that like everything that you're doing on your website makes sense from an ease of gating, so to speak, in this sense, right? Like if you have everything under courses slash whatever, then you can restrict via these URLs. You could send them to a different access, denied type thing. We could set all this up, and then you also have like hosted content here, if you want to do that. So, securely host text-based content inside Memberstack. Lots of really cool things. I want to keep it simple for now. Let's discard these changes, go over to conversions. This is brand new in beta just now, but you can see stats, funnel, AI insights, everything here. We're not going to have too much data in this install, but I love to see this type of thing so you don't have to like rely on some sort of third party or guessing or like analytics to get this. Very cool stuff here. But again, can't really necessarily see it all right now. In the components section here, I want to make mention, there is a website called bricksboard.com that the Memberstack team put directly together for users of Bricks. And I would recommend that you go over and check those out. They're like free components and layouts and things that you can just, copy the JSON and then put it in your website. A lot of really good things here from a lot of different people. And pretty cool because a lot of them have like, I feel like Memberstack adjacent type things or things that you'd want to use in your website in general. So that's a very nice little thing for the community. I'll leave a link in the description, but basically if you just click on any of these, you can kind of see it opens basically in the same thing here, and you can download the JSON and all that. But this is like an iframe of this Bricksboard website. So you can just go to bricksboard.com. And then you can see the full thing here if you want. You can, enter your email for all that, Bricks components. Yeah, so I would recommend you check this out if you use Bricks and you haven't yet. That's definitely a good resource by the Memberstack team. We come down to community. So there's commenting. Again, this is another one where, if you're going to install commenting, right? Which, this is where it kind of gets a little interesting because like some of this stuff I feel like might be slightly from the Webflow time to some degree. I could be wrong about that, but the point is that like this is just one of those situations where you have to understand everything pretty deeply. There's commenting in WordPress. You may get confused with that. This is, Memberstack type commenting. And, I would encourage you to watch tutorials and things like that. But this is kind of like outside the realm of what you're typically used to because it's just external. It's not like the WordPress commenting thing. You can already see it's like Webflow commenting components. So just be cognizant of that. Again, if you're using this, in like mid 2025 here, because again, the transition to WordPress has been good and it fully works with a lot of these things. But something like commenting, you might want to make sure that you're not you're not getting that confused. So that just comes with time too, and obviously learning a new product. So that's that. Event logs, definitely something kind of cool to see. Always good to have that data especially when you start having users and members and all that sort of stuff. You have your API keys, you have your test mode, nothing crazy going on here. Some webhooks that you can handle, and then just some basic settings. I do want to connect the Stripe up and kind of get going here on some of the testing that we can kind of do here, and just give you like a very simple example that we could try, because I do think this is going to be a really good solution for a lot of people that are trying to get some level of gated content with authentication built in. The cool thing about Memberstack so far is that all of the things are baked into one. You know, if you wanted to try to piece something like this together, you'd probably have to get something to restrict the content, and you'd have to get something to, like actually purchase and set up like the subscription or something else. Depending on what you're using for those things, that could get expensive. But again, I'm going to echo this just because like this is the reality of the situation. You could make something like Memberstack for cheap, but it's probably not going to necessarily look as good. One, it's not going to be as cohesive, and it's probably going to be harder to manage. So there, candidly, from my perspective in here right now, there's things that could be improved with Memberstack so far, like in the WordPress ecosystem. But ultimately, the level of cohesion from an admin perspective, and then ultimately on the front end perspective, like the amount of customization and flexibility you have in this realm of gating content, authentication, all that is quite substantial, and it's something that I think is worth at least the testing it and seeing if it's right for you. So with that, let me try to do a quick example for you guys of just a website that I'm actually just going to use my website, a clone of my website, and I'm gonna act like I want to put a piece of gated content on there, and maybe I'll end up doing this for my actual website. I just don't have a full plan yet, but the idea of something where you can have just a section of your website that is only accessible to people that are on a plan. Now, the plan could be paid or it could be free. That part doesn't exactly really matter that much. I'll show you like a paid one just so you can kind of get the vibe in this test mode. But the idea is a user has to sign up via Memberstack via your website, and then sign up for that plan, and then they get access to a specific area of your website. At the very core of it, that is the most basic implementation of Memberstack into your WordPress website. So let's give it a shot. All right, so here we go. This is just a clone of my current website. It's just, again, like just something that I wanted to have, something that makes sense for, potentially to make to put a course on. Didn't feel like spinning up a whole new thing. You get the idea. You could do this on your website. You do this on a client website. Doesn't matter. And in most cases, this is the other thing that I do want to point out here real quick, is it's easy to bolt this on. That is actually something that is a real benefit, because you have your WordPress website, then you have the SaaS platform over there. There's two big things. One, we could just do this at any time, just bolt on kind of the course situation or ebook or whatever, any sort of like gated sectional content. That's not incredibly like unheard of. However, the other thing that's really cool, and the other added benefit about the SaaS situation, is that at any time, if you need to move your website, if you need to scale your website to a different WordPress install, different host, if you need to rebuild somewhere else, because that user data isn't directly in WordPress, if you do need to like move off of WordPress or something, you could still use Memberstack in some other, situation that's like larger than that. It's like, there's, again, pros and cons to having the SaaS situation. So do with that information what you want, test and experiment to your heart's content. Let's do this here. So I have this simple situation here. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to plugins, and I'm going to add a new plugin, and I'm going to just type in Memberstack in the plugin repo here. I'm going to install this. And again, everything that we did before here was all in the app of Memberstack, the actual platform there. Any sort of like adding and all that sort of stuff, which we're going to go back and do, but I want to make sure that, we get this part kind of taken care of here. So we have Memberstack now, and you can kind of see it's in the sidebar over here. First thing it's going to ask you to do is some steps. So the first thing is create an account, which we already have. We were already looking at that earlier. Copy your Memberstack app ID from the site settings. If we click over here, you can see the app ID right here. We go grab it, we come back, and then paste it into here and save app ID. All right, so once you have that in there, I would like to see this. I don't know if I'm going to blur this, if it matters or not, but I would like to see this Memberstack ID here be like not plain text, just if the team is listening and I can ping them about that. That's To me, that's I don't know if it's not really a license key. Obviously, it's just connecting to your thing. But at any time, like I'm not really sure if you're probably not supposed to see that on a video. And also, if you're in somebody else's thing, you probably don't want to like, probably something that's like relatively sensitive or at least unique that should probably not be just sitting there like that. Some sort of encryption to some degree or some, at least some obfuscation. I feel like potentially might be a nice thing. But regardless, if we moved over to view add-ons, this is where you start to get the actual real WordPress experience, right? So if you were in Webflow using Memberstack, it would be pretty straightforward. In WordPress, you're going to have to decide what you want to and how you want to build. So you can see from this list that there are a few different ways that you can build, a couple different integrations that you can, make your building easier. The best way that I can describe what this is that you can see there's Bricks, Divi, Elementor, WP Forms, and Gutenberg. I would assume there's more to come. If you want to see more of these, definitely hit the team up in Slack or directly and everything like that to their support. I'm going to install the Bricks one. And ultimately what's going to happen here is when you go into the builder, you're basically just going to have more elements is what happens, right? So currently you could use, data attributes, shortcodes, and all that sort of stuff to implement. You don't really need these, but if you use one of these builders, it's going to install some third-party elements in whatever builder you're using, and it's just going to make your life easier. And I'll show you what those are once we get into the builder, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do Bricks Builder here because that is the current one that we are using on this website. And then you can see some other things here too. You can see some extra videos, you can see some gated content. And this is another thing too that we're gonna have to look at here. There's gated content. You can like refresh what is gated and all that sort of stuff. If you come over here, shortcodes, it's nice that this is all kind of like baked in here. If at any point you need to jump in and kind of see like, okay, what are these shortcodes? But this is what I'm talking about. You could use these shortcodes in other places. You don't have to use the actual elements. It just makes your life easier. So at this point, now we have all the tooling in place. We have to consider what the best thing to actually gate is, like the best gated content. Now, could be a ton of things. There's a million different things that you could think about here, and it's really going to depend on your client's needs. But ultimately, the big ones that I can think of and that I discussed with the team are there's ebooks, there's courses, which is a big one. There is just like any sort of, literally any sort of data that you want to put behind some sort of a paywall or anything could work. Generally you could create like a community behind there. There's a bunch of different things that you could do, even just like videos. So I think that the easiest thing is we'll just do like a course and we will gate the content so that you can't get into the course section of this website unless you go through the Memberstack authentication, the plans and everything like that. We'll just do one plan to make it simple. You have to go through it. You have to pay in the test mode here. And then behind that, we will put like some videos and maybe some text documentation just as an example. And that's what I'll show you how to do right now. So the first thing that I would do in no particular order is if I would go over to the Memberstack dashboard. We did the starter plan here before, but we can kind of like change it up and do whatever. I'm just going to say I'll say edit details and I'll change the name to, I'll say dynamic data course, which I do already have. And you can go check this out at wpdynamicdata.co. I would highly recommend you go check that out. But if you go there, you can just say like that, and then you say save, and then boom, we have that now. So if we go down, we can see like you can have like a plan image like via Stripe and all that sort of stuff. You can do product tags, all this sort of stuff. And then if you come over here, you can say create price. So for our price, we have to connect Stripe. So we're going to go over to our settings. We're going to connect Stripe. Let's continue to Stripe. It's going to ask you for your email address and all that. This is through Stripe. I believe it's maybe through Stripe Connect. All right, so we connected Stripe up, bounces you back out here. You can go back to plans and you can come to create price. And now we have our, our name for our pricing. So the first one was dynamic data, course or whatever. And then this, you could just say like, I don't know, you can do recurring, you could do one-time pricing. This is another really good, thing that I would like to say. I would just say like lifetime access maybe is our price that we want to do one time, and we'll say it's $500, something like that. And then setup fees, you can say like extra fees if you want. That's a nice little addition there. Expiration, you can even say price expiration after, I guess. So interesting. Automatically cancel after. Is that I'm actually not sure. That could be a little clearer. I feel like set plan, setup fees, price expiration. Does that like what price expires? You don't get it anymore? Is it access? Like the access expires? Little confused on that. I feel like that's what it is. I wouldn't say it like that, but okay. So that's kind of cool. I definitely don't want to necessarily do that right now, but that's another like nice little example there. And if we come down to create price, once you create a new price, it cannot be edited. You still be able to, okay, yeah. So like this price particularly, like you can add more prices, but that one, you can't touch that one after one. That makes sense. All right, so now what we have is a plan called Dynamic Data Course. We have a price for that course of $500, and then we have gated content. And this is where we're going to need to actually start thinking about like where this all is. And there's a lot of flexibility in this, but it's also could be kind of overwhelming. So if you need to like know what you're gating and how you're gating it, and like where everything is. And again, the simplest example here is just to like gate an entire area of your website effectively. And then make sure that that area of your website is tight, so to speak, with how your data is architected, and really like how your URLs are architected, because that's kind of how this is effectively works, right? So if we say the content name, I'm just going to say like DD course content, just as kind of like to give us the idea here, and then members on specific plans, dynamic data course. I mean, again, if you're going to do like, I could see a world here where you could use the default settings, or you could be a little more generalized with these things if you're going to like pay one price and get access to a bunch of different things. But in this case, if you're just trying to do one specific one, and then maybe later you add other things for other plan types and all that sort of stuff, then you kind of want to be specific, I would feel like at first. Down here for your restricted URLs, this is where it's actually going to gate the content. So it's not going to let people have access to it unless you do this. At this point, what I would say is the issue, so to speak, here is that with great power comes great responsibility. Okay, in a sense, none of this stuff is getting created for you because you're doing all of this over on the Memberstack platform. What you really have to do is you kind of have to like build out your structure and then come back and kind of gate the content in Memberstack. I didn't do that yet just because I wanted to like explain this to you guys, because this is something that could be really powerful, but ultimately you need to understand how that works, because that's the big difference between Memberstack and the approach of other membership, a lot of other membership like tools in the WordPress ecosystem at this point. So that's something that you need to realize. So if you're looking at this and you're like, well, Mark, what am I even supposed to be doing? Like, where are these where are these like URLs or anything like that? Like, what am I doing? Well, you need to create that data structure, and ultimately the way that that's all architected. So the simplest thing here is like access denied URL, right? So this is going to be slash, again, it could be slash upgrade, it could be slash whatever. Let's set a couple things, and then let me go bounce back into WordPress, and we'll kind of show you exactly how to do this. So for this, let's go like, we'll say like, I would probably say like, upgrade would probably be fine. What this effectively means that we have to do is we have to go create a page with the slug upgrade. And then that is where, if you don't have access, you're going to be kicked to if that circumstance arises. And then here with restricted URLs, you have starting with or equal to. This is like, if it's starting with, then it could be like, courses slash, if you have like a bunch of content, right? You could have like, maybe you have courses. Okay, if I could type here, I cannot type. Maybe you have courses, right? So you don't want it to be courses. You don't want it to necessarily be you don't want it to necessarily be this just yet, because if I'm thinking about this, you probably want to have courses potentially as your gallery of what you want. But then like when you go in to a specific course and you upgrade and you have access to that, then maybe you want like for this, maybe the slug is like dynamic data, WP dynamic data or something like that, right? So this right here is potentially something you'd want. I'll do it on the other side of these things, and we'll come back to this. But just so you can understand, it's like starting with courses, WP dynamic data, WP DD, and then everything after that would be like restricted, right? You just have to be careful that you're not restricting things that you don't want to restrict, and you're only restricting the things that you do want to restrict, because you don't want people to be having access to stuff that they're not paying for. Effectively, is what's happening. So I'm going to put a pin in that part for right now, and I'm going to come back over to WordPress, and I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to call this upgrade, and we're going to make sure that it has the slug slug of upgrade, which it'll automatically do, but you want to make sure that it's not really about the title, it's about the slug. And then we're going to come into edit with bricks, and we'll just do something really simple just to, kind of like hammer this point home. This is the only reason this page exists is because like, you need to upgrade. So we'll just go like getting H1. It's like access denied. Please upgrade. Now on this page, you'd probably want to have like some level of stuff underneath here. Like you'd want like the, potentially a Memberstack form or something, like a Memberstack thing to do this. And I told you about this earlier. There's a form, there's a button, and there's a profile image from Memberstack, plus all the other, the shortcodes and everything like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop a form in here. And then we're going to have our Memberstack form. So this will be a login, sign up. I'm going to do a sign up. And again, like I was saying, this is an element. So now you can have like full access to this and you don't have to like configure it via shortcode and all that sort of stuff. But you have like some options here. So you have form type. You can say sign up, profile, anything like that. You come down here and say where it's going to redirect to. So by default, it's going to say dashboard. We don't have a dashboard just yet, but you could redirect anywhere. And then you have plan type, which is paid plan or free plan. So you pick your type of plan, and then you say plan action, add or update, depending on what you want to do there. And then then you can select the specific plan. So this can be a login, or a sign up specifically for that plan that we were talking about there. And then you can also change the, the submit text and everything like that. Down here, you can adjust the fields if you want. So if you want to have more fields like this, you can say like first name, last name, like we had those custom fields in there. You can map specific fields to the actual, things that you're looking at there. You can come down here and you can say like first name and everything. You do all that. I'm not going to go again super deep here because you can just kind of walk through this, and you could also like style everything because it's a form right in bricks here. There's also social auth if you want to do like Google or what have you here. Like you can you can enable like social auth, like continue with Google, continue with Facebook. That's a pretty cool one. I don't want to say that's foreign in the WordPress ecosystem, but it's definitely not typical. And it's something that, again, the power of SaaS kind of like makes it a lot easier. So that's something that you can definitely consider going for there. You can do the icon positioning. There's a lot of features in there. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can stylize and customize there. So that's kind of cool. What I do want to kind of check out here is I want to go through this process here as we start this and see like kind of what this ultimately ends up being like when you get denied. All right, so to speed this up a little bit, what I've done is I've created a courses post type real quick, and then I'll explain everything here. So I created a courses post type. I created a course called WordPress Dynamic Data. I will show you. The one thing you always have to remember to do if you ever do something like this and you create a new website is always go to the permalinks and resave them, because WordPress just likes to make it very difficult on you whenever you try to do that. So what we have here now is we have courses/WPDD. Now, if we go to courses, this isn't really going to show anything, but this is ultimately like our archive for our courses. This is where we'd create like our, our marketing, so to speak. So if you went to your website and you said /courses, this is where you could have your grid of all your different courses and everything like that. And then when you click into the specific one, you would have, this is like probably a marketing page specifically for your WPDD course. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of tricks here just because I want to like make this as streamlined as possible for me, like kind of like building this out right in front of you here. If you come to WordPress Dynamic Data right here, what that is a course that is a post type in bricks. So if you come over to settings, you come down to post types right here, and you find courses and you turn that on. What that's going to let you do is directly edit. You're going to see what happens here when I refresh this. You're going to be able to directly edit this page, which is really like a specific post. Instead of making a template and then doing the whole templating situation, I'm just going to edit this directly because I want it to feel like its own, unique page, but really it's a post. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to say like, hey, this is our, we could do post title, but I'll just do heading. Of course, it doesn't go in the thing. We'll go into heading. We'll go to H1 here, and we'll say post title is fine because that's just going to be our WordPress Dynamic Data course or whatever. And then we're going to pretty much do the same thing. Again, this would be your marketing page, but I'm not designing all of that right now because that is up to you, not up to me. And then we come into form and we'll have a form here. So this would be like the best WordPress, dynamic data course. You could do a ton of stuff. Go watch my actual dynamic data course, wpdynamicdata.co, if you want to understand how to do all these different things and set all this stuff up. But right here, ultimately, the main reason that you want this courses/WPDD page, the main thing that you're probably going to want here is your actual sign up, your marketing for that. Like tell everybody why it's good and then sign up, right? And this form right here, this Memberstack form that you can style and do all this stuff to, is how you're going to want to do that. So you do another sign up form, and you're going to see like where we're going to talk about the redirect here in a second, but this is exactly what we just did on that upgrade page. And you could say upgrade, and we want to say the dynamic data course, because if they're signing up right here, that's where they're going to be signing up. And then you could change the fields and all that sort of stuff, but that's not entirely necessary. And then you come back over here to your actual course page, and boom, you have this. Now again, marketing, doesn't look great, not the point. So then this is where they're going to sign up. They're going to sign up right through this form. At this point, now we have this setup coming together here. Now, if you went right now and you typed in an email and a password, it's going to prompt you, and I'm going to show you that in a second, but it'll prompt you to sign up and actually go through the Stripe test process, right? Now, that is, pretty straightforward. We'll take care of that. But the big thing right now is that if we did that in this moment, when it redirected us, it's not really going to redirect us to any sort of a place. It's not going to redirect us right. And again, I need to reiterate this 17 times, is that you really have to understand this doesn't handhold for you, okay? It didn't create anything for us. I had to create a custom post type. If you need that, I had to create the post for this page, like this actual WordPress dynamic data. I had to create all that. I had to put the form in. Very flexible in that case, but you have to understand how that works. Here's the next big problem. The next big problem is, where are you going to put this gated content on your website? Where are you going to, what page, what URL structure are you going to hide and gate all of this content under? You could do it however you want. You could do multiple different like iterations and everything of it. You could have multiple different gated content places. The thing that I'm going to do for you right now is I'm just going to show you like the most simple place that I could possibly think of. And I'm just going to say like a members area. Okay. So I'm going to say members area, and I'm going to say publish, and then our URL is going to be members-area. And, if you want to change that, you can. If you want to do something different, you can do that. But this is where your content's actually going to live. This is the part that's actually going to be gated. So right at this moment, if you went to members-area, you can see it, right? So like let's just do something simple here again. If we just go open in here and we say heading and we say boom, and then we'll say like, welcome to the members area. Okay. And then we'll just make that H1 just for fun. And then, so this is welcome to the members area. So right now, if you go to this, I'm going to open this up. I'm going to come over here, and you can see this right now, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so this is like actual gated content. And this is somewhere you cannot see unless you are on an active plan. So there's a couple things that I want to do. We're going to bounce back over to our area where we had our forms. This is our specific course where we're signing up, right? And we're going to change this to, where do we want to redirect them to? This is one thing that we have to do. Where do we want to redirect them? And I would tell you to do this like many different ways, potentially. And also that had this in here, this /dashboard. I guess you could do that as a relative URL, because, if you put the whole thing in there and then you made this live, you probably wouldn't have that or whatever. So I think this can be a relative URL. That seems fine. So members area right here, that's where we wanted to redirect them to when they log in and when they actually sign up for this dynamic data course, because they will have access at that point, because they will be on an active plan. So that's nice that that's easy, and you put that right there. The other thing is, you should probably put it over here too. This is where this gets a little more complex, because ultimately this is the kick out link, right? Like the upgrade link that we were talking about. When somebody tries to access something and they can't get in there, you can make this more complex and more customized. But this is ultimately where you're going to get kicked out to if you try to access it and you don't have any of that access. So that'll make sense in a second. But ultimately, this is what we have here. So we have our page where we're going to be able to sign up to. We have our members area where it's going to be like, we can customize this more, and this is where like the actual information would be. Let's just put like a video thing in here, just like as an example. This is where, let's say this is a video that you one of the videos that they're getting as member access. So that's what that is. Now, we have really a few URLs that we're talking about here, and we have one main URL that is our area that is completely gated, and that's just everything under members area, as in this example. So if we come back over here, right, and we come to our dynamic data course and we say specifically in here, and we have members area, we can say like starting with or equal to, I'm going to try just member areas like this, and then I'm going to say upgrade here. And then ultimately this should kind of work for us. So like anything starting with members area, we could put sub stuff underneath there and everything like that. Hopefully, as long as this works, if I go now to and I check this out, you shouldn't be able to get in there. All right, so I'm going to test this live with you. I'm going to go to an incognito tab. I'm going to type in demo course / members area. I'm going to click enter. And now this is kind of interesting. So it showed it for a second, and then it said, oh, you don't have access. We're going to kick you to upgrade. I don't know if that's a me issue. I don't know if that's like a Memberstack thing going on. It seems to me, though, that it did the right thing. It just did it a little weirdly, because this is the expected behavior here, where it's like, okay, you weren't allowed to be in there because you didn't have a plan. I feel like I probably should have checked the plan before it showed me the data, but that is I'm gonna like have to double check on that. But the expected behavior did happen. We're not able to access that, so it kicked us to an upgrade thing where we could log in and we could do whatever. Now, just as another example, if we're in this incognito tab and we go to courses, this is again the flow. It looks like trash here, but the point is that if you go to courses and you click WordPress dynamic data, and then you come into here, this is the marketing page, and then you log in. I want to show you this because this is actually something that you might want to actually do. Is if you go to here and then you go like this, and then you say like whatever, it doesn't really matter, some random stuff. Sign up. Now here's the test flow, right? That was a Memberstack form specifically configured to sign up for this course. You come into this. This is a nice little UI that they have. I don't know. I think this must be a Memberstack thing where you come down here and you can see like test successful payments. That was a little confusing the way that this kind of looks, but the point is you can test successful payments with debit, MasterCard, American Express, and you can also test declined payments. And then there's a bunch of other stuff here. So you can copy like the test card, and then realistically, this would not happen, obviously, in live mode. But I do want to show you this because this could probably be another thing that you like or you dislike. The way that this works is with a Stripe integration that is through Stripe. Like to me, it's so far, at least in here, I can't see a way to do it. But maybe correct me if I'm wrong. This is when you click sign up, this is actually where they're going to go, to this like checkout.stripe thing, right? And then you come into card and you type in, the information there or whatever, and then boom, boom, boom. And everything happens here, right? So this is fine. But I would say that, it's fine. It's pretty industry standard, but it's also not all on your website. I'm the type of guy that like, I know that this is how this is supposed to work, but at the same time, it's like now it's kind of like a different type of experience. It's fully in Stripe, and we're fully like outside the parameters of our thing. There's many SaaS and many other products that work like this, but if you're used to like a WooCommerce, SureCart type of experience, it's not like that. So that's something to also consider there. I'm gonna go ahead and click pay here, and we'll see what happens next. So it gives a little check. All right, so it kicked me to my home page. That might be a configuration issue on my part. But I do want to see something actually now that I'm thinking about this, because I just thought of something else that's like, considering. So if I go to members area now, then obviously I'm logged in. It lets me do whatever I want and lets me have access to this. The other thing you're gonna have to take into consideration is how to tell that they're logged in. And this is the other thing as well, because like you're no longer managing login and log out at a WordPress level, which can be good, but also can be like annoying for you to deal with, because you're not going to be able to utilize a lot of the same like conditioning and things like that. So that's why maybe look out for any sort of sync in the future between members in Memberstack and also users in WordPress, because like I'm just noticing now that like there's no inherent way, but there wouldn't be in WordPress either. But there's no inherent way right now to know that I'm logged in or know that I'm logged out, other than trying to access the area and getting kicked out. So that's something that you definitely want to, like I said, consider. If you go over to your dynamic data like, page here. I'm still a little unsure why the members area thing didn't do that, but that might have been a me problem. Ideally, after I did that, it would have redirected me there. I'm trying to think. There's probably some shortcodes in here that are going to allow me to show if I'm logged in or logged out, just for like kind of an idea. Obviously, you can do everything with shortcodes, but if you go to Memberstack and then you type in button, then you can come up here and you could say like, we'll put this like just above the heading, just as, as just so we can see it. You can say like modal, action, plan, what have you. And you could say, let's do like action and then like log out. And there's a bunch of different other things too, customer portal, all that sort of stuff. I kind of actually am interested to see that. So I'm going to type in log out, and then I will also duplicate this. This is the other thing too, is like, you can put classes and a bunch of stuff on that. Just like for fun, let's do button primary. By default, like I put the button primary class on there, but by default it has some styling on here. I understand why they do that. I would probably rather see that not be the case though, especially for bricks users, because they're definitely not going to want the default styles. But that is what it is. I mean, you could just take that off there. So you can like style all this and everything like that. It doesn't have to, it's not just like, it doesn't have to look like that. But then if you come back over here, you can go action, log out. So I wanted log out, and I also did want to see like, a couple of just different things. So there's like modal, sign up profile, all this stuff. There's action. This is again where like you're so in the weeds here with some of these things. Like you have to have an idea of what you want before you actually build some of this, because there's so many things. So free plan, that's another thing. So like I want to see customer portal real quick. So I'll say portal, and I want to also see that's probably fine. I'm not sure what login redirect is. So let's just kind of play around here, and let's go to our back to our thing here. If we go to here, so portal, where's portal going to take us? Ah, interesting. Okay. That's really important. See, this is the pro and con of dealing with Stripe. That's really important. You need to be able to get them to this point in this process, because if they do want to cancel, if it's a recurring or anything like that, you absolutely do need to have that. So that's what customer portal does. It takes them to the Stripe portal. Would probably like to see that potentially say Stripe portal if it's just Stripe, but is what it is. That is really important. So I'm happy that I tested that out, because you definitely need to have a way to get them to that. I have still yet to find a good way. I'm trying to think. You'd probably want to have like a login or log out up at the top. Maybe you'd want to have a log in. Let's try one more test. Let's try if we duplicate this and then we say a log in, because I basically want like a button that is either log in or log out effectively. So there's a modal for logging in. Not really sure what that's going to do for us. I really don't know what login redirect does. I'm going to say login. You obviously don't want a login button here, but I'm saying like if you put it up in the header, then you would want, when you're logged out, you want to say log in. When you'd want to log out, then you want to kind of build that. So it's something that I would try to just play around with. I'm not sure what login redirect is. Let's find out together right now as we go through this. If we go log in, what does that do? Okay, I'm not sure what that does. Maybe it's just, whatever. But then we log out, and then it redirects us over here. I think that probably would have given us a, let me click on the log out real quick. Yeah, okay, I would love to see like a redirect for this, like where it redirects you to. I guess it just redirects you to the main, the homepage right now, but that's fine. And just real quick, so if we go back to members area now, then okay, absolutely do not know what happened the first time I tested this, where it showed it for a second and then got access denied. But that's kind of the concept there, is like you have gated content at members area in this sense. You can go to wherever you want. It doesn't have to be on that thing. It could be wherever. You drop a form in there. You're able to sign up for a specific plan that you've created. And then with that plan access comes the gated content access, right? Then if you're trying to upgrade there, then it goes to like upgrade. instead, and you get this whole access denied, please upgrade type of situation. So just another thing that we want to take a look at here now that we have some more data is if we head back over to the members, we can see that we have a couple more members here, and we have one specifically that is now on the dynamic data course. So you can kind of see that. You can see extra information about everything that they have going on there and everything. You can even have like a login redirect. There's something that I didn't really cover specifically, but you can have like member specific pages. And that's actually probably part of the stuff that we're looking over there. You can have member specific login pages. This video is absolutely getting long at this point, and I just wanted to cover the basics. So hopefully you get like a better idea of what Memberstack can do in future videos. Definitely leave down comments in the description down below, like what you want to see as far as, potentially, more features. And if you go, I encourage you right now to go play around with Memberstack, because there are, again, you can just download the plugin for free. You can sign up. If you do want to purchase, in the description, there is a coupon code that you can get a discount on the actual paid version of Memberstack. It supports the channel, everything like that. So I greatly appreciate using that. But overall, thoughts on Memberstack at this point, I would say it's definitely a really good thing that I'm going to experiment with more for my own gated content. That's something that I haven't really tried to do too much with just yet on my website and my clients' websites. I think that it could be really good for that. It's definitely a really good place as far as, separating it out. If you do want to have a little bit of those separation of concerns, you can do everything from the actual app dashboard here. And the biggest thing that I can say for it is it is extremely flexible. I'm going to echo it. Like I said a couple times earlier, you have to realize that this is not, I wouldn't classify this as like a templated hand holding approach for this. There are other tools if you want something similar like that, or if you want something more like that. This is definitely going to give you the options to do a lot of different variations on your plans, on the types of content you gate, the places in which you gate them, what the actual content on the website is itself, because it's not going to manage any of that for you. It's not going to build any of that for you. You have full creative control in that regard. So I would highly recommend that you, if that's something you're looking for, you take a look at Memberstack. Again, thanks to Memberstack for partnering with me to make this video. I'm excited to make more in the future, and let me know, like I said, down below, how you like Memberstack as you try to experiment with it in your own projects. So with that, that's all for today. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you in the next one.